My name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. We're going to go over a tune today, and you can print out the score to this tune by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel. You'll see a link to a PDF there. Today I would like to do with you a competition Strathspey called the U with the Crookit Horn. Usually we actually see the title spelled this way. A ewe, of course, is a female sheep, and we can certainly imagine a sheep with a crooked horn. In fact, it is thought that this tune is actually written about a whiskey still with its crooked shaped condenser. Be that as it may, this is a very old tune. It wasn't originally a pipe tune. It appears in the fiddle repertoire as early as 1758 and was certainly played widely by 1800. It appears in the piping repertoire in 1843 in Angus Mackay's publication, The Piper's Assistant. Angus published it as a reel, as you can see here, in 2 parts only. Thanks very much to Steve Scaife of Kelshon, who has made so many of our old books like this one available online. Feel free to pause the video here to see how this teaser of a tune foreshadows the later classic. It is quite possible that the tune appears elsewhere in the piping repertoire under a different title. This was very common in the late 1800s as tunes were arriving into the repertoire from the fiddle and other instruments. David Glenn published thousands of pipe tunes, and I have to think that somewhere in those tunes is a version of the U with the Crookit Horn with a different title. Fast forward now to pipe major Willie Ross, who published the Strathspey in 4 parts in his book 2 in 1932. Like so many classic tunes found in Ross's books, the U with the Crookit Horn appears fully formed in 4 parts, and this, note for note, is what most pipers play today. This either says much about Willie Ross's arranging skills, or perhaps more likely, the unpublished tune was being played by competing pipers, and it evolved until it finally reached Willie's hand. The setting we'll go over today is Ross's, with the exception of 1 3-note run added into the last part. Okay, let's begin by hearing the whole tune played on a Dagger electronic chanter. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you can play all of the technique in this tune. Grips, torlews, D-throws, doublings, D-strikes. Most of what I talk about here will be musical. The first point I want to make is the most important. We usually think of Strathspeys as being strong, weak, medium, weak. The first beat in each bar is strong, the second beat weak, third beat medium, fourth beat weak. I'd like to abandon that model in favor of strong, medium, medium, strong. The first beat in each bar and the last beat in each bar are strong. The middle two beats are medium. There are no weak beats in a Strathspey. I don't know of any other time signature where the long notes are so long and the short notes are so short. And mastering this kind of pointing takes some work. You need to be able to play doublings and other pieces of technique after very, very short notes, and that's a tall order for less experienced players. All of the dotted notes are pointed. We'll just find that some are a little more pointed than others. So, pervading this entire video will be the idea of the first beat in the bar and the last beat in the bar being strong. However, there are other things to watch for as well. Let's hear the first part played on the practice channel. In the first bar, you are going to hold beat 1 and beat 4 as long as possible. Strong, medium, medium, strong. This is understood throughout the whole tune. However, in the first bar, there are a couple of notes you might easily overlook. I've circled the low A after the torlu. We all know that we hold low A's before torluas, but it's very easy to neglect the dotted note after the torlua. Be sure you hold this note and cut the following B. The next note you'll see circled in bar 1 is the low G. Why is beat 3 circled when I've asked you to make this a medium beat? The reason is because of what follows it. You see a B doubling followed by an E grace note to low G. This is what we call a Strathspey GDE. It's not played exactly as it looks. It looks like it's played like this. In fact, it's played like this. GDE, GDE. I've made a video on Strathspey GDEs, and if you haven't seen it yet, I would suggest you stop this video and you go and watch the Strathspey GDE video. Before Strathspey GDEs, and they appear everywhere in Strathspeys, we always hold the long note. So, in bar 1, in bar 2, I've circled a B, which again is before a Strathspey GDE on C. And here you're going to hold that B, even though it's a third beat, you're going to hold it as long as you can before you hit the doubling. In bar 3, it's a low G, again, before the B GDE. In bar 4, it's a little trickier. I want you to hold the note after the torlua again, because there's a GDE following it. But between that low A and the GDE is a very short C with a D grace note on it, and that can be difficult to play. It's a rising D grace note going from low A to C. I have a video on rising D grace notes, and you may want to have a look at that one too. But despite this D grace note on C, you want to hold the low A after the torlua long. I've asked you to hold the last beat in each bar. It's very straightforward in this part because all of the last beats are dotted notes or quarter notes. It's not quite the same in part 2. Let's listen to part 2 played on the practice channel. Here is where you really need to start paying attention to the last long note in each bar. It's an easy note to slough over because you want to get on to the next bar. Let's look at bar 1. Opens with a quarter note. Strong beat. That's pretty obvious. The last note in the bar is an 8th note dotted with a D doubling on it. That's going to be a longer note than your beat 3. Right after that long D is a short B. Treat that little B almost like a lead-in note into the next bar. Bar 2, the pattern is the same, except we end on an F. Again, long F, and treat the short D like a lead-in note to the next bar. So here is bar 1 and 2. Like that, long note at the end of the bar. That pattern continues through the whole part. It's a little different in bar 7. In bar 7, we start with a long note, and then in the middle of that bar we have this little run from high G down to E. There's a similar run in the first part. Treat these expressively exactly the same way as Strathspey GDEs. Huckatum, huckatum, beedly, deedly. It's the same expression, and the long note before it is always going to be long. At the end of bar 7, we have a long B, which will really extend because you're going to play a grip to finish off the last bar. That's part 2. Let's move on to part 3. Almost everything important in this part happens in the first bar. The rest of the part is much like the rest of the tune. I've circled the first beat and the last beat in the first bar as usual. You will notice that the very first note in this bar is a short note. You will have a tendency or a desire probably to play this short note early. Make sure it's squarely on the beat. It has a G grace note on it, and your G grace note finger will hit the chanter when your foot hits the floor. Really enunciate that short note. Right after it is a D strike with the G grace note. You're going to wait for that G grace note until the beat happens, and again the G grace note will hit the chanter when your foot hits the floor. Some pipers have a tendency to put the strike on the beat rather than the G grace note. Make the very first D long and hit that G grace note right on the beat. And then hold the last note in the bar. If we go down to bar 7 now, we see a run from high G all the way down to low G. Point every dotted note in this run. Play that whole run as pointed as you can. Something like this. Don't rush down and don't rush the GDEs. That's pretty much everything in the third part. Let's move on to part 4. The fourth part of this tune, to my mind, actually conforms more closely to strong, weak, medium, weak than to strong, medium, medium, strong. To me, the melody in this part demands that the first and third beats be really held out. Ba-dee-a-dum, 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 ba-dee. But don't forget to still hold the last note in the bar, the last long note in each bar. If we look at bar 4 in this part, in the middle of the bar we see a very short F with a high A grace note on it. That F is on beat 2. It's not the high A following that is on the beat, and pipers often have a tendency to put the long note on the beat rather than the short note. Hold the high A at the start of the part and make sure that short F is enunciated and on the beat. And that's a fitting ending to a great tune. That takes care of pretty much all the expressive things I wanted to talk about in this tune. It's a difficult tune technically. If you're having trouble with the technique, I suggest you not just play the tune over and over and over and over again and hope the technique gets better. Work on your technique in exercises. Work on your technique separately from playing your tunes. This way your technique will be getting better on its own, and you'll find you'll be able to play the tunes more expressively as your technique improves. In terms of tempo, this tune doesn't need to be played at a blistering tempo. The Dagger recording I played at the beginning of this video was around 111 or 112 beats per minute. If you're just starting to play Strathspeys, you can play this tune as slowly as you want, as slowly as you need to continue to make all of the technique. The fastest you would probably hear this tune played is 122 beats per minute or thereabouts, and that would be played by the best players. Okay, that's our tour through the U with the Crookit Horn. It's one of the great competition Strathspeys in the key of D. I hope you enjoy this tune. From me, Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box, good piping.